President Trump is praising his administration's response to the coronavirus as the number of cases in the U.S. continues to rise.
America's extraordinary success over the last 3 years has ensured that we are the best prepared in the world to address any threat or any challenge. Nowhere is more true than our vigilant and unprecedented effort right now to protect Americans from the coronavirus. It's really, we have an incredible team of talented people, the most talented people in the world. We're actually helping a lot of other countries too, as you know. Early on, my administration leapt into action and undertook the quickest and most aggressive response to a foreign outbreak in modern history.
Trump 2020 Communications Director Tim Murtaugh joins me now. Tim, thanks very much for being with us.
Sure, Elaine, happy to be here.
So at least 10 people have died in Washington state from the coronavirus, and I know the vice president is heading there on Thursday. There are reports that there were delays in testing more Americans, which potentially allowed more time for this virus to spread undetected. What reassurances can the president give to the American people that under his leadership, this kind of situation won't happen again?
I think the American people can take heart in the fact that President Trump acted very swiftly and very early on this. More than a month ago is when he established the task force. And let's remember, that was in January. It wasn't even until mid-February that the World Health Organization even named this virus. So the president was way out in front and has the United States way ahead of the curve, especially when compared to other countries that are experiencing this outbreak. And so I think the American people can rest assured that the president, his administration, and the medical and scientific leaders within the United States government are on top of this and have it in hand.
And for people who, though, read these stories about the delays in testing and may be skeptical, you say what? What is it that you are specifically pointing to in addition to that task force being created?
Well, the FDA has the ability very shortly to be conducting about 1 million of these tests. And let's remember, these are very focused and tests that need to be localized, and because there are certain people who are going to be considered at risk, whether they've traveled to those parts of the world or some other risk factors. And so Dr. Fauci, who is from the National Institutes of Health and is one of the immunologists who is running point on this, he is very satisfied with the government's response to this. And I think if someone like Dr. Fauci is satisfied that the government is doing everything in its power, then run-of-the-mill regular Americans ought to be satisfied as well.
The president, of course, has focused on the economy and taken credit when the stock market hit historic highs during his administration. Is it also on him if government stimulus action can't get markets back to those high points?
Well, I mean, I think it's really funny to listen to this because right before last week, when the market had a down week, we heard a lot of people in the media and Democrats saying, oh, it doesn't really matter what the stock market does because a lot of Americans don't own stock. And then when the market takes a dip, then they say that the stock market is the most important indicator that anyone's ever known. And so it's fascinating to watch when the media and Democrats care about the stock market and when they don't. The fact is the stock market is as strong as it has ever been. The basic fundamentals of the American economy remain exceedingly strong. Unemployment and the economy in America is at the best point it has been in half a century. And I know that Democrats are desperate for something to latch onto it to attack President Trump with. The strong economy is not one of those things, let me tell you.
Let's turn to the recent Democratic primary results and play a clip of the president's reaction to Super Tuesday.
It was a great comeback for Joe Biden. Incredible comeback when you think about it. But if you would have looked, if Elizabeth Warren would have done what she probably should have done from their point of view, he would have won, right? He would have won a lot of states, including Massachusetts, probably Texas, definitely Minnesota. So Bernie would have won states that he lost, and he lost fairly easily. I think Joe has an easier path right now, believe it or not. I see Mini Mike just got out, and he's going to, try and save face by putting some money into Biden's campaign. The one thing this whole thing has shown that you can't buy an election. It's a beautiful thing.
The Biden campaign has said it will look to use Michael Bloomberg's resources to run against President Trump. Does the Trump campaign have the money to match the potential millions that could be spent?
Oh, certainly, yes. The president has unparalleled and unprecedented financial support from supporters and donors, and it's because of his great and strong and clear record of accomplishment on behalf of all Americans. This campaign was never going to be decided about who's got the most money, because we will have all the resources that we need to see to the president's re-election and then some. And if Mike Bloomberg is going to be putting his resources into the campaign, he'll be essentially acting as a one-man super PAC, and that's not the same as having a candidate actually have the resources himself to put into the race. And so I think if Mike Bloomberg is a third party funding this race, that doesn't really change a whole lot. President Trump will have all the resources we need, and rest assured we will have all the things at our disposal that are required to see that he's reelected.
On Monday, Senator Ron Johnson requested a subpoena for a witness related to the investigation of the Ukrainian energy company where Joe Biden's son Hunter worked. If Biden is the nominee, is that something the Trump campaign wants to make an issue of?
I don't think you've seen us shy about talking about that to this point, and I don't see why that would change. I mean, there are some really very serious questions to be asked there. Hunter Biden was being paid a fortune by a natural gas company from Ukraine at a time when his father was the vice president of the United States and was a point man on Ukraine policy for this country. The question is, what did those people want? Why were they throwing buckets of money at the son of the vice president of the United States? It certainly wasn't because of his expertise in the natural gas industry. What did they want? Those are legitimate questions, and it's no wonder that Joe Biden gets irritated every time they come up. Those are real questions.
Joe Biden and his supporters have said multiple times the reason why officials like yourself raise those kinds of questions is because they say the president doesn't want to take on Joe Biden. What's your response to that?
Well, then he would just answer the questions and let it be done at that. Instead, he gets mad about that. These are fair questions. We also level all kinds of criticisms at Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders says, by the way, exactly the same thing that Joe Biden just said. Bernie Sanders says, oh, Trump's afraid of me. And Biden says, oh, Trump's afraid of me. And Mike Bloomberg used to say, Trump's afraid of me. So, you know, they're all saying the same thing because they all want to act like they're the front runner. We don't know who the president's opponent is going to be. And the president is itching for an opponent. But even though it's down to essentially two now, we still don't know who's going to come out the other end of the Democrats' process on that side. It's been messy, and it's down to two. But we don't know. It's probably going to go all the way through to their convention before we have an actual answer. And it does appear that it's down to these two guys, Bernie and Biden. But in the end, it will be someone who is running on a far-left extremist agenda, and it'll be against President Trump and his clear record of accomplishment in the strongest economy that this country has seen in half a century.
Tim Murtaugh from the Trump campaign. Tim, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.